Hey everybody, Mr. Morel here, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to finally multiply two matrices together. Now, a couple units ago, we learned about scaling a matrix, which is like where you start with one matrix and then you multiply every number in that matrix by a single number. Sometimes people call that matrix multiplication, but it's not. When we talk about this lesson is going to be taking two matrices and multiplying them together. And it's very, very different than adding or subtracting two matrices. So just a quick review. When you add two matrices together, those matrices have to be the exact same dimensions. And then the answer is that same dimension. And like you would take the top left number, add the top left number, and then you would get the top left number. Or take the bottom right number, add the bottom right number, you get the bottom right number. So that's like adding matrices or subtracting matrices. Multiplying two matrices is like a totally different world. And to help us, this entire unit, we've kind of been building up to this thing that we're going to be talking about with multiplying matrices. So basically, depending on your teacher in high school or in college, they might call this process the dot product. But it's just matrix multiplication. It's just a different word for it. So I just wanted to tell you, sometimes people call it the dot product. Okay. So the whole reason we've been using these skateboard questions in your earlier lessons is they're really setting up this crazy process we're about to go through. So on your homework, you had two tables, and this is like 3.1 and 3.2. You had two different tables. Now, something I want to point out is, yeah, when we made the homework, we turned them into tables. But essentially, you can kind of see here are two different tables. We could just put brackets around those numbers instead of making them tables, and you would have two different matrices. Now, in the last homework, all you did in the last homework assignment was learn how to tell if you can multiply two matrices together, and you found out what the new dimensions would be. So just to review that, because that's going to become important. So let's say that we have our first matrix here, which is about having three different types of longboards and three different procedures to prepare the longboard to sell. So we had sanding, painting, and assembling, hybrid, downhill, or cruiser longboards. Okay, so that's a 3x3 matrix. You can see that pretty easily. We also had a different matrix that talked about how many of each longboard was sold in July and in August. Now, on your homework, you probably had different numbers, but it was the same setup. Okay, so I had a 3x2 matrix here. So just to review the last homework assignment, because that's going to be important, the way that you can tell if you can multiply two matrices together is you would line up the dimensions. So our first matrix dimensions, our second matrix dimensions, and basically you're looking at the two middle numbers. If those middle numbers are the same, you can multiply. If they're different, you can't. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then not only that, but basically the outside numbers are the dimensions of the answer when you do multiply these two matrices. So basically, I can multiply these matrices because these middle numbers are both threes. And when I do multiply these two matrices, my answer is going to be a 3x2 matrix. Now, we didn't really tell you why that's the case. That's going to be in today's lesson. So, like I said, I just wanted you to kind of start tying these weird pieces together from this whole unit, and we're going to learn how to multiply these matrices. Okay, so now let's just dive into something really specific. So imagine that you could see my numbers here, my two tables, okay? And I just want to review with you the process. How did I figure out that in order to paint all of the longboards in July, that it was 274? Okay, so again, you could see our setup here. I know my answer is going to be a 3x2 because of the way we set up the question earlier in the unit. Then I know my answer is going to be sanding, painting, and assembling in July and August. Okay, I'm just going to walk you through how I got this number right here. To get how long it took to paint all of the longboards in July, I had to kind of take pieces at a time. So for example, I knew that it was 0.6 hours to paint one hybrid. And I knew that there were 200 hybrids in July. So what I did, and I've got my calculator out here, is I basically took 200 times 0.6. And I got 120. Let me write that somewhere. I guess I'll write it right here. So 0.6 times 200. Sorry, this isn't going to be the prettiest. Equaled 120. Okay, so that's how long it took me to paint all of the hybrids. Then what I did is I wanted to find out how long it would take to paint the downhills. So 0.8, oh no, that went crazy. Sorry, 0.8 of an hour times, there were 130 downhills in July. So I'm going to do 0.8 times 130 equals 104. So 0.8 times, what was it, 130? Sorry, this isn't going to be pretty because writing on the screen is a little bit tricky. That was 104 hours of painting all of the downhills. And then I figured out it was a half an hour, 0.5 of an hour, to paint one cruiser. And there were 100 cruisers. Okay, so I do that 0.5 times 100 means that I spent 50 hours painting the cruisers. So basically, it took 120 hours, right? Did I say that right? To paint all of the hybrids, 104 hours to paint all of the downhills, 50 hours to paint all of the cruisers. So altogether, I would add those numbers up, and I got 274 hours that I spent painting in July. Okay, so this crazy process of matching numbers together in order to get this number right here is called multiplying a matrix. Okay, now clearly we have a whole bunch of other numbers we need to find, and in your 3.2 homework, you actually did that. So let me just go to the next page because I want to show you what I'm doing and what happens when we remove these labels. Okay, so I'm going to show you a trick, and I'm going to use the longboards to show you why this trick works. Let's say I know I need to multiply these two matrices together. A trick that I like to do is I actually like to rewrite the first matrix a little bit lower. Okay, I kind of like to line up my two matrices I need to multiply together, kind of not really side by side, but corner to corner. All right, so kind of just recapping what we just talked about. So if I'm going to multiply these two matrices here, then I'm going to rewrite the first one down lower, the second one up higher, and the answer is going to fit right here. Now, it's okay if you're lost. This is pretty intense stuff. But I just want to point out here, let me get my pointer here. Notice that the first matrix has 3 rows, and our answer has 3 rows. And even notice that the labels are lined up: sanding, painting, and assembly, sanding, painting, and assembly. Then the second matrix had 2 columns, and our answer has 2 columns. And notice that they even line up. We have July and August, July and August. Okay, so those are kind of lining up. And just to recap what we were just barely talking about, let me get my highlighter here. In order to find this number, what I did, the process I went through, was I took this number times this number. Notice how things are lining up. I'm looking for this number here, and I'm using the first number in this row times the first number in this column. And then what I did is I took the second number in this row and I multiplied it by the second number in this column. And then I took the third number in this row and the third number in this column, and I multiplied those together. So red numbers were multiplied, green numbers were multiplied, blue numbers were multiplied, and then I added them all together to get 274. Okay, now you already went through this process on your other homework. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here on this slide. I'm not going to find every single number here because I want to kind of move on. But I am going to find one more number just for practice. All right. So give me a quick second. I'm going to go ahead and erase. Where's my eraser button? I don't know where my eraser button is. That's my pen button. Oh, there's my eraser button. Okay, so let me go ahead and erase these things. Okay. And just to kind of keep your brain going along with this, because I know this is pretty intense stuff, let's take a second and I want to help you find this number down here. And again, you've already did this on another homework assignment, but this is going to help us learn why matrix multiplication is the way that it is. Okay, to find this number, notice it's in the third row and the second column. So I'm going to be using the third row and the second column. Okay, now I'm going to start with the numbers farthest away. So I'm going to start right here with 120, and I'm going to multiply it by 0.5. Look at your labels. To assemble hybrids is a half an hour, and there were 120 hybrids in August. And I'm trying to find our assembly time in August. So I'm going to do here, I'll write it up here, 0.5 times 120, and that's going to equal 60. Okay. Then I'm going to take 0.2 hours to assemble a downhill. And there were 75 downhills in August. So I'm going to multiply those together. 0.2 times 75. Let me get my calculator for that. I think it's 150. No, it's one. Let's look. Okay, so 0.2 times 75 is 15. Okay. So that's 15 hours of assembly for the downhills in August. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and take 0.6 and then 90. I'm going to multiply those together. So 0.6 times 90. Okay. So my calculator, 0.6 times 90 is 54. And then let me just reiterate because I want to make it crystal clear. So I started by multiplying the farthest numbers together. Then I multiplied my middle numbers together. And then I multiplied my inner numbers together. And now I'm going to add all of those things up together. So if I add all of these up together, let me grab my calculator. 60 plus 15 plus 54 ended up equaling 129. And that's the number that would go right here, 129. Okay, so I'm not going to finish this matrix because you already did it on your homework, but that's the general idea behind multiplying two matrices together. It's pretty intense, but we're going to practice. I'm going to do 4 more practice questions with you in case this is pretty tough stuff, and I'm going to do the full question together. Okay, so again, this whole crazy process, it's called it's matrix multiplication. Some people call it the dot product. It's different than scaling. Okay, so let's get to the nitty gritty. In your last lesson, I think you talked about what kinds of matrices can you multiply. Here were 3 examples of pairs of matrices you could multiply together. So this matrix was a 2 by 2. This was a 2 by 3. I can multiply them together because the middle numbers match. And the answer is going to be a 2 by 3 matrix. Let's start with this example here. All right. So looking at this, here's my 2 by 2. Here's my 2 by 3. My answer is going to be a 2 by 3. All right. Remember, my big trick, this is the only way that I survived matrix multiplication when I was in school, is when I'm given 2 matrices to multiply together, I like to rewrite the first matrix down here. Okay, I know I can multiply them. I'm going to rewrite the first matrix down lower. First matrix lower, second matrix higher, corner to corner. And the reason I do that is your answer is going to fit right in here. This first matrix had 2 rows. The second matrix had 3 columns. And our answer is going to have 2 rows and 3 columns. Okay, now I'm going to start with the first box right here. Okay, so just a reminder, in order to do that one, what I need to do is to find this number here. I'm going to start with the first row and the first column because this is in the first row and the first column. I'm going to start farthest away. I'm going to multiply these two numbers. Then I'm going to multiply these two numbers, and I'm going to add that together. So to find this number, I'm going to do 1 times 1 is 1, plus -2 times 3 is -6. So 1 plus -6 is -5. That's the number that's going to go right here. Let me just get an eraser really fast so I can kind of get rid of this mess. Okay, so that number right here is -5. All right, now I'm not going to just do these numbers in order because I want to jump around these matrices a little bit just to hopefully get your mind with me. Okay, so let me jump around a little bit. Let's start by finding this number next. So hopefully you can start getting ahead of me on my thinking. To find this number, it's in the second row and the second column. So I'm going to use the second row. You can kind of imagine this is pointing right here, and this column is pointing right here. Okay? Now I'm going to start with the numbers farthest away. To get this number, I need to multiply the farthest numbers. I'm going to multiply the next closest numbers, and I'm going to add that together. Okay? Again, I know this is really overwhelming here to start off. We're going to do lots of examples together. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start by doing 3 times -3 is -9, plus 2 times 0 is 0. -9 times 0 is 0. So the number that goes right here is the number 0. Let me go ahead and erase this. We're going to jump around again just so hopefully you can follow me as we're kind of moving around from one place to the other. Let me go ahead and get my blue pen ready. Let's start by finding this number here. Now notice this number is going to use this column and this row. Okay, let me go ahead and erase these arrows because I don't want them to confuse you too much, but that's the idea. To find the number in this first row, third column, I need to use the first row of the first matrix, the third column of the second matrix. So I'm going to go ahead. Let me get my pen ready. I'm going to use blue. I'm going to do 4 times 1 is 4, plus -5 times -2 is 10. 4 plus 10 is 14. That's the number that goes right here. Okay, what I'm going to have you do is consider this. I know it's a video. Think about pausing the video for a second. Let me erase this stuff. Pause the video. See if you can find these 3 numbers. And then I'm going to show you those 3 numbers. Okay, let me erase this so I have a little bit of space. So pause the video. Find those 3 numbers. And let's see if we match. Okay, so go ahead and pause. And now I'm going to go ahead and find those numbers too. So let me go ahead and change colors. So for this number right here, it's in the second row, first column. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me delete these arrows. I'm going to start with the numbers farthest away, and I'm going to work my way in. So I'm going to do 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6, and I'm going to add those together, and this is going to be 9. So this number right here was the number 9. Hopefully you got that. If not, see if you could track maybe where your mistake was. Okay, let's keep going. I'm almost out of colors here. Let's see, I've got a yellow. Okay, to get this number, I'm going to use, oh, that's really hard to see. That's okay, we're going to go for it. I'm going to use the top row, the middle column. I'm going to start farthest away. So 1 times -3 is -3. Wow, this was really a poor choice. -2 times 0 is 0. -3 plus 0 is -3. So even though it's hard to see, I will pick a better color next time. That's our answer there. Okay, last one. Let me go ahead and I'm going to find a reasonable color here. Let's go orange, probably. Yeah, orange. All right, so to get this number, I'm going to use the third column because it's in the third column. I'm going to use the second row because it's in the second row. Start with the numbers farthest away from this spot. Okay, so I'm going to the top of the column and the far left. 4 times 3 is 12 plus -5 times 2 is -10. 12 plus -10 is 2. This number is the number 2. So to multiply, oh no, I don't want to get rid of all of that. To multiply these two numbers here, let me get my eraser. That's clearly important right now. If we were to multiply these two matrices that we started off with, the answer would be this matrix down here. Okay, woo, that was a crazy one. All right, we're going to do another example. All right, our middle example is this one. So this is going to start off as a 2 by 1 times a 1 by 3, and somehow multiplying these two matrices is going to give us a 2 by 3. I think if you use my trick, you're going to see why. So here we go. This matrix times this matrix. My trick is rewrite the first matrix down lower so it's corner to corner like this. Okay. And then your answer is going to fit in this empty space. Notice 2 rows, 3 columns. So my answer is going to be right here. Okay, this one's going to be a lot easier than the last one. I actually started with the toughest one because I wanted to stretch your brain. So here we go. We're going to start by finding this number right here. We're going to use this column. We're going to use this row. Now notice this is going to be pretty straightforward because there's only one number in each of these. So basically 1 times 4 is 4. So let me go ahead and erase this stuff. Okay, so this number right here is just going to be 4. There's not even any adding because we only have one of each number. So to find this number right here, look, -5 times 1 is -5. To find this number right here, 1 times 8 is 8. Okay, we're going to come down here. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times -5 is -15. 3 times 8 is 24. And that was it. Okay, this one was a little bit easier just because there wasn't lots of multiplying and adding. So that is that second example. Pretty easy. All right, let's go to the last example. Somehow, like you can kind of see, we basically flipped a little bit these matrices. So we've got a 1 by 3, a 3 by 1. I know I can multiply these matrices because these middle numbers are the same. And somehow, weirdly, we're supposed to end up with a 1 by 1 matrix. Let's see how that would work. All right, so using my trick, I'm going to take the first matrix and I'm going to write it lower, right here. So they're corner to corner. And I know the answer is going to fit in this spot. This matrix only had one row. This matrix only had one column. So that's going to be a 1 by 1. You can see it just fits right nicely in that spot. Okay, now to find this number, we need to start with the farthest away from there. So the top of the column and the farthest to the left. We're going to do 1 times 4 is 4 plus 3 times -5 is -15 plus -2 times 8 is -16. I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator so I don't mess up. 4 plus -15 plus -16, oops, I mistyped that, wonderful, is -27. So this matrix right here is -27. Okay, whew. We started off with a skateboard example. We didn't finish that whole thing, but now we've just done 3 full examples. Let's do one more set. Okay, this time we're going to do a 2 by 2 times a 2 by 2. So just think about it like this. We're starting off with a 2 by 2. We've got another 2 by 2. I know that I can multiply it because the middle numbers are the same, and the answer is going to be a 2 by 2. So what I want you to do, pause the video, see if you can multiply these two matrices together, and then when you come back, I'm going to go ahead and do it. We'll compare answers and see how you did. So go ahead and pause. And now, if you're back, I'm going to go ahead and multiply these. So you know how I like to set it up. I like to set it up with the second matrix higher, the first matrix lower, and I'm going to set up my matrix right inside here in this space. Okay, I know my answer is going to be a 2 by 2. Oops, that was an ugly bracket. It's going to be a 2 by 2. Let me switch to my highlighter. So basically I need to find a number here, here. Oh, let's use different colors. Here, here, and here. Okay, so to find the yellow number, I'm going to use this first column and this first row. You need to start with your numbers that are farthest apart. Okay, I'm changing my pen here. So I'm going to start by a 4 times 3 is 12 plus 0 times negative 5 is 0. Add those numbers together, you get 12. This number right here is a 12. Did you get a 12? If so, you're on the right track. If not, see if you can track your mistake. Okay, for this green one, 1. Oh, this is going to be too much for my eyes. Let's go ahead and erase these. Okay, so green. Okay, so 1 times 3. Notice I'm using the second column, first row. So 1 times 3 is 3 plus negative 5 times negative 6 is 30. 3 plus 30 is 33. Okay. Now, I just want to emphasize that we're finishing up. I know this stuff is crazy. It's tough. And you're like, what does this have to do with anything? You got to have faith in us. What we're going to do is we're going to take the stuff that we're doing in class, and it's going to merge with this matrix stuff in a really cool way. At the end of the trimester, these worlds are going to come together, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this whole thing is kind of magical and cool. So just trust me. Okay, let me erase these lines. Then I'm going to go to blue. All right, blue. So to find this number here, I need to use the second row, first column, start farthest away. So 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 plus 0 times negative 1 is 0 equals negative 8. So this number right here was negative 8. Okay, finally, purple. Oh, let me go ahead and erase this line. All right, so for my purple number, let me get my purple pen. 1 times negative 2. Notice I'm starting farthest away. Start farthest away. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2 plus negative 1 times negative 6 is a positive 6. I'm going to add those two numbers together. That ends up being a positive 4. How did you do? Did you end up getting the right matrix? If you had a mistake, did you catch your mistake? Hopefully that's helpful. I know this stuff is intense, and I know it feels like it's not connected. Oh, you just got to have faith in us. It's going to come together. And the thing we learn next unit, unit 4, is where we're going to tie that stuff together, and you're going to see why you're learning all of this crazy stuff. All right. I really hope that video was helpful. I know it's tough. You're troopers. You did it. Email your teacher if you have any extra questions. Good luck on your homework. I know you guys can do it. Well, take care. We'll see you later. Bye.